good morning, good afternoon, or good night from whenever and wherever you're watching us. I am Cameron Scandal. That is Steve. That is Steven Trefler that way. We are the Sound. Thank you so much for joining us today, folks. We hope you are having a happy Friday heading into this weekend. I'll tell you what, Steve, today specifically, long day for me here at work. I'm glad to be here in my comfortable sports environment to give the world the well-deserved information they need.
Yeah, no, I'm glad the weather's finally breaking. Golf weather is on the horizon. Let's know we're gonna finally get back to some sense of normalcy without the depression of no golf in our lives.
Yeah, let's celebrate the end of seasonal depression. That is truly the gift of America right now. Is that seasonal depression is over, golf weather is here, and the Sound is hitting your airwaves right now. Could not be in a much better position. Got a lot of good stuff for you today, folks. A little bit of NBA, a little bit of college basketball for one, switching it up just a tad. A lot of good stuff going on today, folks. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Our first topic of the day, the NBA MVP race, a two-man race, which seems like to be the whole season between Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Nikola Jokic. A lot of conflicting opinions, honestly, of who should be the frontrunner right now, although Vegas seems to think it's not very close at all. Shai has a very sizable lead right now in terms of the betting odds. Steve, like I said, a lot of people divided on who should be deserving of this MVP. Right now, who do you have as the frontrunner and who is more deserving at this time?
Honestly, it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think that he is clear-cut the best player in the league this season. He is the most deserving of MVP, and here's why. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander currently is averaging 32, 5, and 6 with a block and 2 steals. Jokic is averaging 29, 13, and 10 with a block and 2 steals as well. So their stats are somewhat lopsided, but we know that Jokic puts up numbers. That's part of what he does. We've known about this for 3 years now, so seeing a stat line like that for Jokic isn't something that pops off the sheet to me immediately. Outside of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, their second best player is Jalen Williams, and their third best player to me is Chet Holmgren. That creates the core three for that team. Now, this season, Chet has been dealing with significant injury issues. He's only played 20 games of the season. He went out on November 10th and came back on February 7th. They played 40 games in that span. They went 33-7 without their third best player on their team. Obviously, Shai Gilgeous had to elevate in order to compensate for the loss of an influential player on their team like that. Somebody who is also, he's averaging 2.8 blocks per game this season. He's a defensive anchor down low for them as well. Currently, right now, the top 8 teams in the NBA, as far as where they place in their individual conferences, are the Cavs, the Celtics, the Knicks, and the Bucks in the East. And then it is the Thunder, the Lakers, the Nuggets, and the Grizzlies. So when you look at how the Thunder and the Nuggets played against the top 4 teams in each conference, the Thunder are 11-4 against those teams so far this season. The Nuggets are 4-11. To take it one step further, I mentioned that Chet had been out that significant period of time this season. In that stretch, against the best teams in the league, the Thunder still went 7-2 against those top 8 teams without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Without Chet Holmgren. So it just shows and adds to the little things that are going to separate such a tight race, which we don't believe it's tight, but there's a lot of division right now. So when you look at the little things that separate them, and a lot of that is the head-to-head matchups against the best teams in the league, the Thunder and Shai Gilgeous clearly have the advantage.
Yeah, like you said, I don't think it's particularly close. I also think it's SGA, and I think right now we are confusing MVP with best player in the league, which has not been a new thing that's happened for multiple years. And someone needs to come to me and make the argument for Jokic without using a numbers-only argument. Because I understand Jokic is doing outlandish things right now with his regular season stats potentially probably going to be the first center ever to finish the season averaging a triple-double. Super impressive. Numbers usually only get you your first MVP, and then you have to do more after that. So we gave Jokic his first MVP because it was like, wow, look at what this guy's doing. We've never seen it. It's crazy. Then his second MVP we gave to him because it was like, yo, the Nuggets are in a bad position, but he is still going crazy. We think they're going to be the best team, the best contender because of purely him. And then his third MVP, we kind of felt like it was just, I would say his third is his most, or possibly only, legitimate MVP. SGA right now, though, the difference is Giannis is carrying this team, which has a good argument, but Shai is the core of this Oklahoma City team. They are not going to be the same at all without SGA. And we usually, Steve, you and I specifically, usually use the argument of if you swapped player A and player B, which team gets better and how would they affect both sides? This is the first time in a long time that I think of that example, and it's almost a wash to me. Like, I truly don't believe either side gets exponentially better or worse. I don't think you put Jokic in OKC with that young team. He does not have the leadership or the intangible qualities to rally and build and, like I said, be the core of a team like Shai is. I also think if you put Shai on this Nuggets team, better fit than Jokic in OKC, but I still don't love the feel and vibe. Like, I think Denver has really rallied around Jokic, and a part of their identity is the fact of, like, we are going to prove that this guy is what we truly believe he is, and everyone's saying he's not. But that's besides the point. What I think is really important and really telling, and what I think is the number one argument for Shai in this MVP race, is that he has a college team as the number one contenders in the NBA. So the Oklahoma City Thunder, the average age of that team is 24 years old. For reference, I am 25. The OKC average age is 24 years old. This is some teams or some records of other teams who have had an average age of 24 years old. The 2011 Timberwolves, they went 17-65. The 2014 Magic, they went 23-59. The 2015 76ers, they went 18-64. So we have seen throughout history that teams with this age and this roster construction are not good. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has them as the number one contenders in the NBA. And if you sit back and you think, how are the Thunder that heavy of betting favorites? Your only and immediate answer is SGA. And once again, we are confusing MVP for best player in the league. No one is saying, and I don't think anyone is saying SGA is better than Jokic.
Flashback.
It's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think that he is clear-cut the best player in the league this season.
I don't think he is. I wouldn't want anyone saying that. Jokic right now is still the best player in the NBA. But that does not mean he is the most valuable player in the NBA. And also, one thing we just always happen to coincidentally forget when it comes to the Nikola Jokic MVP argument is defense. He cannot play it. He's never been good at it. SGA obviously far and above a defender that Jokic is. So, Steve, I just don't know how anyone can sit back and look at everything and, like I said, without looking at numbers, because we've seen in years past with MVP arguments that numbers do not matter. It doesn't matter how well-rounded or how eye-popping your numbers are. That's never been what it's been about. So I don't know how anyone can look at this season and look at what SGA has done with this Thunder team and not think he has not been the most valuable player in the NBA.
Yeah, I really never looked at it from a perspective of how have other teams at this age group done historically. And that really...
I missed a team. The 2006 Hawks, they also went 26-56.
The fact that he's taking this young core group of guys and has them with an 11-game lead in the West. The conference who is, in my opinion, the best conference in basketball. And now you're talking about a guy who has elevated his team to the top of that list. Yeah, you really brought up some good points that are some brain thinkers, some real It hurt my brain to look at it from that perspective, but it's accurate.
Also, I'd like to point out OKC is leading in their head-to-head matchups, and you would think a team that young, like in any other sport, in any other situation with a team that young, you would think they're rebuilding, they're looking to next year, they need to add a vet, like something like that. Again, this is not the case for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Do we believe in them to win? I mean, we obviously don't, but clearly Vegas does. Clearly, there are other people who believe that they are just so good that they will will themselves there, regardless of the precedent of the young team. But yeah, like I said, I don't know how you can look at the season in totality and not think SGA has not been the most valuable player in the league. Moving on to our second subject, it is everyone's favorite segment, Soundbite. Please forget what Soundbite is. It is where Steve and I react to different post-game interviews, podcast clips, whatever the case may be. Someone says something that we want to take a listen to, we listen. Something came to our attention that Paul Pierce is apparently saying that Jason Tatum and Celtics players throughout history have been underappreciated and underrated, and that Jason Tatum deserves more love in the NBA. Not thrilled with this, so without getting too much into it, let's take a look.
Because he plays for Boston. It's just what it is. Every player, like, through Boston, even Larry Bird was underappreciated. You know what I'm saying? Because at one point, he was the best player in the league. But it was always Magic, even though Magic's my favorite player. It's just playing for Boston. Boston is the most hated franchise, hated team in all of sports, in all of basketball for sure. Like, the guy has been to 6 conference finals, bro, in 8 years. In 8 years, 2 finals. Like, if you match that up with, like, KD's and all the stars, they didn't do that. Like, well, Luka been to 1 finals, 2 conference finals. This dude have been to 6 conference finals. He's 26 years old. Think about that. It's just, I don't know, maybe because he's not flamboyant and, you know, he's private and he don't talk shit, or, you know, he's not demonstrative out there. I don't know.
So there you have it, folks. That is Paul Pierce saying something. He's out here talking. Steve and I we watched, I'll post the whole video that we looked at here. The whole 6-minute clip or whatever it is really worth your time. I highly recommend. But Steve, focusing on Paul Pierce, talking about Tatum and his underappreciation, how do you feel about this statement, and do you agree with Paul Pierce's analysis?
No, I do not agree with Paul Pierce's analysis. No, I do not whatsoever, Cam. Let me explain something to you. Over the course of Paul Pierce's retirement, Paul Pierce has felt the need to try and insert himself into the conversation of a lot of different things, whether it's who is the best of his era, or is he top whatever, top 20, top 25, whatever it is. Paul Pierce feels the need to elevate himself. So when Paul Pierce makes the statement of, well, it's because he plays in Boston, he is elevating himself by trying to elevate why Jason Tatum is underappreciated. Let me be very clear with you, Paul Pierce. Larry Bird was not underappreciated. I have never in my life heard somebody say, oh, you know what? I think Larry Bird's one of the most underappreciated guys in NBA history. That's just not the case. And Jason Tatum is appreciated for exactly what Jason Tatum is. And every single time the lights have shown the brightest on him, Jaylen Brown becomes Batman. You can't have the notoriety that you see in a Luka or you saw in a prime KD when you disappear almost. You don't disappear, but you don't elevate. You stay the same or play worse. You stack his resume up against a lot of stars and take his name off of it. That's not all we look at. The eye test, there's intangibles that Jason Tatum just simply does not have. Paul Pierce is just upset because Paul Pierce feels undervalued and underappreciated. So no matter what you ask somebody like Paul Pierce about when it comes to the Boston Celtics, he's always going to err on the side of, oh, they didn't appreciate none of us enough. No, that is not the case here, Cam. I specifically, I categorically and affirmatively disagree with everything that man just said.
Yeah, as soon as you put this on my radar and I watched it for the first time, yeah, my first thought was just that Paul Pierce he's trying to make up for his own inadequacies by saying, yeah, it's just how Boston players roll. It's just what happens. It's just like, so let's take it systematically. So saying Boston players, his first point, that Boston players are never appreciated, and that's why Tatum isn't appreciated. Bill Russell, Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Bob Cousy, Sam Jones. I don't know. I think we all kind of appreciated those guys in their own right. They all kind of had their own things. Larry Bird was so underappreciated that he got 3 straight MVPs. Nobody really cared about him. Nobody cared about Larry Bird so much that he won 9 straight first-team All-NBAs. No one even was thinking about Larry Bird back then. Larry Bird was so far in the back of the NBA world's minds that he had 8 years of being a top 3 MVP finish. Like, just nobody cared. Nobody talked about the guy ever. So, I mean, yeah, I get what Paul Pierce is saying. Now let's talk about being the most hated team in sports when we're talking about Boston. Do you have the case, Boston? I don't know. There's the Yankees, there's the Lakers, there's the Cowboys. The Chiefs had now been emerging. The Patriots had a run for a long time. I don't know. It's tough. Boston's up there, don't get me wrong, but the most hated sports team in American sports? Stop it. Then we want to talk about, he then wants to bring up Luka. Luka's doing all these things, getting all the talk, doesn't even have close to the resume that Jason Tatum has. In the 2024 finals, which both players were a part of, Luka averaged 29, 9, and 6, where Tatum averaged 22, 8, and 7. And like you had said, we appreciate Tatum for exactly what Tatum is. A really good regular season player, has a lot of good numbers, and has a nice game. Can't take it away from him. Consistent top 5 NBA player. But when you go into the playoffs and you need a guy to win, or you want someone to build your future behind, I don't think you're taking Jason Tatum. And so for Paul Pierce to show his own Boston bias and to just act like we are all just dissing Jason Tatum because he's a Celtic is the most asinine thing I've ever seen.
I will say I have never liked Paul Pierce. I appreciate Paul Pierce for the years of that he was good in the NBA, because listen, Paul Pierce did have a good NBA career, but he needs to stop acting like he's not being appreciated, living vicariously through Jason Tatum's lack of appreciation.
If you heard the whistle, then you know what that means. It is time for the 2-minute drill, where Steve and I talk about something that almost made the show, just didn't quite have enough time to get it in there. Today we're going to talk about some recent NFL free agency moves, some quarterback moves, a lot of moves for Chicago. There's lots to talk about. So without further ado, let's get right into it. First up, Sam Darnold, the new quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks, 3-year contract, $100.5 million. Steve, a lot of people seem confused by this move. I actually like it and think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think it does make sense, especially for a team that seems to be going into full rebuild mode. That's the best option they had to at least stay afloat and not completely embarrass their franchise. So while they're in rebuild, I'm okay with this move.
Yeah, I mean, he's a young enough quarterback. He's a good placeholder for now. I think they're going to find a quarterback in the draft, kind of build him up a little bit, get some pieces around Darnold. He can build them up. So when the new quarterback comes in, they're all kind of falling into place. So yeah, I actually think this makes a lot of sense. And then moving away from Seattle, Geno Smith traded to the Las Vegas Raiders as their new starting quarterback. Now this one, Steve, I like Geno Smith more than I like Sam Darnold, but I don't think this is going to be the needle mover that Vegas thinks it is.
No, I'm on record telling you that I don't believe this is a very impactful move for the Raiders, because simply what they've done is they signed Pete Carroll, then they bring in Geno Smith, and they're just bringing Seattle to Las Vegas, in my opinion. Now, I know they have Brock Bowers, so that's a better weapon for him, because I do think Brock Bowers is going to be an elite tight end in the league, but either way, it doesn't really taste right.
Yeah, they'll get a little bit better. I'm not saying playoff better, maybe a smidge better. And then the Chicago Bears making a lot of moves this offseason. A lot of people saying they've done the best so far. Steve, Ben Johnson's impact, how's it going to look this coming season?
He's going to bring culture, and I think he's going to bring a lot of success from the years under Dan Campbell.
I think it's going to be more the same as last season, to be honest. Maybe a smidge better, but I don't think this Bears team's going to look light years better than what they did this past year.
I guess we'll see.
Moving on to our third and final topic, moving to some college basketball. Cooper Flagg of Duke, the clear best player in college basketball right now, the clear number one pick in the NBA right now, has not declared that he's actually going to go in the NBA draft. A lot of talk of if he's going to stay at Duke and run it back, or if he should fulfill his destiny in a sense and move on to the NBA. Steve, not often we see someone of Cooper Flagg's talent debating on whether he wants to be drafted or stay at his college. What do you think Cooper should do, and how is it going to affect his future?
Well, as you know, being a Duke fan as well, it pains me to say this, but Cooper Flagg should go to the NFL. And I know that this might not be completely about the money, but the math don't math if he thinks he's going to stay at Cameron Indoor. Players of Cooper Flagg's caliber have we've never seen somebody like that in a position like this. We've seen Harrison Barnes return to North Carolina to avoid, the NBA's looming work stoppage. We've seen Al Horford and Joakim Noah come back to Florida to try and chase back-to-back championships. But those are the only guys we've ever really seen that were being talked about a lot as first-round draft picks that chose to stay in college. But what speaks more to Cooper Flagg's decision is Yahoo Sports is currently estimating that a Cooper Flagg NIL deal is going to look somewhere around the $6 to $8 million if he does return to Duke next season. But Kenny Smith was talking with Yahoo Sports as well about what would it look like for a Cooper Flagg rookie contract in the NBA. His first year, he'd make around $13 million. His second year, he'd make around 14, 15 in his third, and up to $21 million in his fourth year, depending on the length of contract that Cooper Flagg would sign. Cooper Flagg returning to Duke, one, proposes a lot of risk for injury because as we've seen from players previously, it only takes one play and your entire career could be altered. Go make your bag, young man. Go to the league, secure that generational wealth, and then now you have the opportunity to do what everyone has been saying that you should be doing, which is being a superstar from day one. If that is truly what Cooper Flagg is, he should not risk coming back to Duke, injuring himself, and potentially ruining a rookie contract that could pay monumental amount of money to this kid.
I think ultimately he will go to the draft. Like you said, it's such an unprecedented move. This is clearly, it's been his dream since I imagine he was a kid. It is clearly going to be like from a literal person on earth standpoint, this is going to be his job. So it makes sense that you want to get a start on that and get money as soon as possible. But I truly believe that this is not an easy decision for Cooper Flagg. And while I do think he will choose the draft, it might be 50-50 still at this point. Cooper Flagg, I think, speaks to a lot of what his mindset with this, I think speaks to a lot of other people in his generation of block out the noise. It's not about what everyone else wants you to do or what you should do because there's never a right answer to anything. I think he truly feels a connection and a passion for Cameron Indoor and the Crazies, which I'm sure other college players throughout history have felt that same way about their schools and their fans. But when you look at any pictures of Cooper Flagg, every single one, he's yelling, screaming, he's flexing, he's making a face. It's full of emotion. Cooper Flagg, much like Kevin Durant, I don't think cares about anything else but the game of basketball. I think Cooper Flagg, and we have seen this actually with Duke alumni specifically, when they first get to the league and they talk about what it was like at Duke, how that helped their career, they always say how it's a family and it is like this deep inner pride feeling that you can't really get or explain from anywhere else. And while this is obviously a major life decision, I think Cooper Flagg is not looking at it as you have to get drafted and fulfill your destiny now, or you're going to lose out on this massive opportunity. Because the number one argument for anyone to not stay back a second year in college is what you had mentioned, Steve. You then risk injury, and your entire career is gone in an instant. Even if he did get injured, he would work, fight, and tough his way out into getting back to the form that he was. It is not uncommon to sign NBA players who have injury issues. We have clearly seen throughout history, Kyrie Irving, Paul George, John Wall, Joel Embiid, Bradley Beal. Teams are clearly okay with signing big contracts and big money to guys that have had an injured past. Now, Cooper Flagg does not have an injured past if this hypothetical injury does come to be. And because of his stock and because of his energy and his passion, I think teams, like I said, will feel, even if he is hurt, number one, how are you still passing up on Cooper Flagg? Number two, we can get him back to what he was because he wants to be here. Like, look at like Shedeur Sanders or even like an Eli Manning who has been like, I'm not playing for this team. You won't draft me. I'll stay. I will make sure I get what I want. No, obviously, I don't think anyone is saying that about Cooper Flagg. I don't think Cooper Flagg is sitting and going, man, I am not getting drafted if I have to play for the Hornets. I think if he doesn't get drafted, that is obviously going to work. Like, teams are going to go, man, Coop's sitting out because he doesn't want to play for us. We don't want him anyway. You know, if he don't want us, we don't want him. That's not the case. I don't think anybody thinks that with Cooper Flagg. It is, they truly believe Cooper Flagg just really loves playing at Duke, has a true connection with these fans and that team, and wants to be a part of it. So as an NBA GM in a franchise, I'm seeing this. I'm going, wow, the clear and away best player I could have be mine. If I can get him to buy into me like I can, like he did with Duke, imagine what I can do with my team. So, Steve, I do think, like I said, ultimately he will go to the NBA draft. But I think it is totally reasonable, and I would not judge him or look at him at all any differently if he said, yeah, you know what? I really love it here. I feel a true connection with these fans. It's not life in general, no matter whether you're a professional athlete or what, is not always about I got to do business or I got to do what everyone wants me to do or I have to do what is necessarily the right thing to do. It's what's right to you. It's your life. It is what you want to make of it. If Cooper Flagg wants his story to be, I cared about Duke so much and I felt such a connection that I wanted to stay here, and that is a part of my basketball story, good on him. Good for him for being able to differentiate what he should do, and what he wants to do.
You know, that's very well said. And obviously, Cooper Flagg's got a tough decision to make here, right? Cooper Flagg's game is very aggressive, very attack-oriented. It is very he affects all aspects of the game. He leads Duke in every major statistic. An injury where I agree with you, I think his passion would help him fight back. There's the concern of, can he ever return to the level of aggression and peak that we saw him? So you're right. It's one of those that Cooper Kupp is going to make millions regardless of where he goes. So it's going to come down to, does he value the connection to Cameron Indoor? I agree with that. Does he value that more? Or does he want to go and secure what will probably still be there for him, even if he returns to Duke?
And that's going to do it for us today, guys. Another great show. A little bit of different show today. Hope you all enjoyed. Always remember to follow our Instagram page @thesound_YT. Follow us there for any updates. Like, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you guys want to talk about. Are we doing too much NBA at this point? You want a little more football? Let us know. We're always here to listen to your opinions and talk about what you want to hear us listen to or what you want to listen to. Also, next week for the show, March Madness quickly approaching. So Steve and I will be doing a live bracket, filling it out together with you all here, giving you the best picks possible. So make sure you tune in next week for that. And also, folks, always remember, you are ever in need of intelligent and cogent sports analysis. Listen to the sound. We will always have you covered. Thank you so much for joining us today, folks. We hope you have a great rest of your day or night. Stay cool. Almost due time to start staying cool. Stay cool, maybe stay warm. Stay safe. Take care. We'll see you next time.
Listen to the sound. I listen to the sound.